Okay, welcome everyone. As we, Baruch Hashem, starting right away with 26 Zumras, Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's a good number to start with. As we are sponsored once again by Shalom Fogel, Lili Nishmas Yaakov Zeb ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas Gad, and Yosef ben Sion ben Yaakov Zev. We are co-sponsored by the Rezepkowitz family in honor of their parents, and by Mr. and Mrs. Eddie Chazan, who is getting stronger and stronger, and he's co-sponsoring for Shoshana Bas Penina and Simone Bas Rachel, B'Sei Shar Cheli Yisrael. We're also co-sponsored by Binyamin Rivlin, who also is a sponsor of our Adapta Kolel, and he's doing it Lili Nishmas Yitzchak ben Avram Yehuda Levi. And today I received a sponsorship from my wonderful Talmud Beirich Goldwasser, dedicated for my continued refuah shalema, Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel, and with Hakar Satayv to the Shir. He joins us from a distance. We have the pleasure of welcoming here Berish Gesseman. And Berish, it's great to have you during the week, it really is. Gedalia Engel and Rich Lenner and Michal Avram Shenkman. It is a veritable pleasure to have you with your Sansino Gemara. That brings me back. The Sansino Gemara brings me back 40 years. 40 years. I used the Sansino 40, as a matter of fact, as a matter of fact, 45 years ago, I went to the Brooklyn Public Library to get the small ones. They had small Sansinos, pocket-sized Sansinos. Yeah, so I used to go and take them out from the Brooklyn Public Library. And we welcome...
Rob is the one who has them. Fine.
We welcome Ruvain Shannon. I told you when I left Staten Island, I sold 1,000 Svar. Because there was just no way, and even now I still have 40 boxes that I didn't unload yet. But I sold 1,000 Shvarim. They wanted to buy the Sansino set, and I couldn't sell it. Because I remember learning with all my babies with the Sansino cradled on my knee. And it has the burp marks of my babies. And I just couldn't part with it. I don't use it, but I couldn't part with it. Truth of the matter is maybe somebody could use it, but look, I figured over here it's an extra Gemara. If somebody needs a Gemara, they could use it. So it's an extra Gemara. At one time, if somebody wanted an English Gemara, that was the English Gemara. That was what was available. Anyway, and we welcome in David Helfgott and Kol Lashin. So let me welcome in everybody here. Barry Cement, Baruch Ian, Michal, Yeshua Yamansky, Irving Fishbaum, Saba, Mel Zachter, Stephen Holtzman, Eddie Chazan, Yaakov Warman, Dr. Guy, Ruvain Pollack, Yitzi Fuchs, Eddie Chazan, and Shalom Fogel. Shalom, we already mentioned your dedication. Thank you very much. Nachman Chapler, Richard Rosenzweig, Moshe Lehman, Rabbi Kranz, Yitzi Mully, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Yelia Shutman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Abe Arbach, Naftali Jablin. And so last night we finished off that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, what he meant is it's a mitzvah to offer a choice if the litigants want to go through the strict letter of the law or they want to go to arbitration. So now the Gemara says, but if so, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, 2 lines from the top, if so, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Hainu Tanakama is saying the same thing as the Tanakama in the Brisa. The Tanakama in the Brisa says that it's not forbidden to go to a arbitration unless you knew, unless you went to din. So that means that he holds that in the beginning you could give a choice. So what's the difference between Rabbi Shimon ben Karcha and the Tanakama? So the Gemara says, Ika benayim mitzvah. The difference between them is it a mitzvah to give them the choice? Rabbi Shimon ben Karcha savar mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to give the choice. Tanakama savar rishus. It's optional. Says the Gemara, well, if it's Rabbi Shimon, if the Tanakama says that it's optional, if that's the case, but then Hainu Reb Shimon ben Manasseh, that's the same thing as Reb Shimon ben Manasseh, who says that the choice of going to arbitration is optional. What's the difference between the two of them? Says the Gemara, the difference between them is when the judges heard what was said, they heard the arguments, and you know where the wind is blowing. The judges have a good idea what the psak would be. According to one, you can't say let's go according to arbitration. According to another, you could say let's go to arbitration until the verdict is issued. Says the Gemara, Opliga de Raptanchen bar Chanulai. This that we said different explanations in the pasuk of Boitzeya Beirich Niyetz Hashem. We had all kinds of explanations in the pasuk of Boitzeya Beirich. If you remember, we had one case where Barry was grinding grain and baking it after he stole it. And then he makes a bracha on the challah, and we said, B'itzeya Beirach, if a snatcher makes a bracha, it angers Hashem. That's one pshat. And we said another pshat was Yehuda, who said, Ma betza, what profit is there to kill Yosef? And if somebody says Yehuda did well, the B'itzeya Beirach niyetz Hashem. What?
It doesn't sound like Yehuda is really trying to save Yosef.
Huh?
It doesn't sound like Yehuda's trying to save Yosef.
Sure he is. Sure he is. He didn't kill him. He said, Ma betza, what profit would we have that we should kill Yosef? Why should we take his blood, let him live, and sell him into slavery? Now, says the Gemara, and by the way, I didn't welcome in Shlomo Yehuda. Shlomo Yehuda, I didn't see you, I'm sorry. That was a glaring omission on my part. As we also welcome in Dr. Black for our 30th Zoomer of this early evening, 30th Zoomer, and Marshall Castle snuck in with his Frankfurters. Says the Gemara, Upliga de Raptanchen bar Chaniloi. This pasuk of B'itzeya Beirach Niyetz Hashem is different than the explanation of Raptanchen bar Chaniloi. This pasuk was only said ela keneged ma'aseh ha'egel. It was only said about the golden calf. The golden calf was preceded by a terrible thing. One of the leaders of Klal Yisrael was the great Chur. Chur was the father of young Betzalel, who would build the Beis Hamikdash. And they wanted to make the golden calf, and Chur tried to stop them, and they killed Chur. It was a horrible thing. A horrible thing. They killed Chur. Now, with that background in mind, Shenema Vayar Aaron saw, Vayiven Mizbeach Lefanov, and he built an altar in front of the golden calf. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? He saw. What did he see? Mara. What did he see? Amar ben Yam Bayafas, Amar Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Yam Bayafas says the name Rabbi Lazar. Ra Chur. He saw Chur. Shezavuach Lefanov. He was lying dead before him. He saw that the mad mob murdered Chur. So he said, I better listen to them, I better follow instruction, or they'll kill me too. And if they kill me, it's curtains for Klal Yisrael. Amar Eloi Shemanalu, if I don't listen to them, Hashta avduli kida avdu b'chur. They'll do to me the same thing they did to Chur. Umekayim be, and then it will be fulfilled with me, the pasuk that says by Zechariah. When Klal Yisrael killed Zechariah, they killed a Kohen and a Navi. And if so, im yehoreg b'mikdash Hashem Kohen v'Navi, if they would kill in the temple of Hashem Kohen and Navi, and then they would proceed also to do idolatry, v'lo yavilu takanta lo'olam, they would be doomed. Mutav de la'avdu egel, it's better that they should make an egel, av shahavilu takanta b'tshuva. Maybe they'll have a chance with tshuva. Now, V'hani Tanoi, now we talked before the exposition of the pasuk of Poiter Mayim Reishis Medain, that if a judge knows the verdict, he's not allowed to go to a compromise. So Poiter Mayim Reishis Medain, you could only do it in the beginning, before you know the verdict. That only then could you go to arbitration. But the ones that say that you could go to arbitration, what do they do with this pasuk? This is a famous pasuk. V'hani Tanoi Poiter Mayim Reishis Medain Maidor Shabbat. What do they do with this pasuk? Poiter Mayim Reishis Medain. So the Gemara says this Mayim is a metaphor for Torah. Ein Mayim el Torah shenever hoy kol tzamei l'chul Mayim. If somebody is thirsty, people are unfulfilled. A lot of people in this world are unfulfilled. They're unhappy. So the pasuk says, hoy kol tzamei. If you find yourself, you're thirsty, you're unfulfilled. L'chul Mayim. The answer is in Mayim. Answer is in Ein Mayim el Torah. The answer is Mayim. That's what it says. People don't realize. It says, Torah Hashem Tamima Meshivas Nafesh. The Torah of Hashem is perfect. It rejuvenates the soul. It's so funny. There are people that fret and fret and fret that they're bored. If they would immerse themselves in Torah, it would give them such a sense of fulfillment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'hakol niyeh b'dvaro.
Amen. The world's not thirsty.
Any Pepsi, Barry?
Marshall is thirsty. Bourbon.
Coca-Cola.
Just like water comes from the heavens, Torah comes from the heavens. Just like water quenches the thirst of the body, like nothing else, Torah quenches the thirst of the soul, like nothing else. Happiness is the universal quest. There are so many unhappy people. And the Torah brings happiness. Pikudei Hashem Yesharim Misamchei Leiv. I heard this from Rav Miller many times. The Rav Miller says he was walking in a nursing home. And he was passing by rooms and he was looking at sad, blank, dismal faces. And he came into one room and there was an old man sitting by a desk with a Gemara and learning. And his face was aflame with life. And he said, that's what it says at the end of Masechtas Kedushin. It's achris v'sikva. It's a security and a hope for one's later years. Oy yenuvon b'seiva. The shenim v'rananim yiyu. This is very important to know this. But here, the Gemara says another thing. Poiter mayim. How one acquits himself is reishis midain. It's the first thing that he's judged upon in the next world. My darsh beiked Rav Hamnuna. Dam Rav Hamnuna ain't chilas dinoi shel adam nidain. A person is first judged. Ella al divrei Torah. Shenamar poiter mayim. The way he quits himself over Torah is reishis medain. So over here you have a very famous Tosfos, because this is a stira to a Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos says that la'asid lavai, the first question we're going to be asked is nasakta v'nasakta be'emunah. Did we do business with integrity? So that's what Tosfos asks. If you look at the second Tosfos, and only then did you make time for Torah study. That's a person who learns Torah. That's one teretz that he says, that Ninami Shoylin Tchila Masam Matam Be'emuna. They ask him first about business, but punishment comes first about Torah. In other words, that's his judgment, his punishment will come first about how he acquits himself in learning Torah. Amar Rav Huna. Now Rav Huna says another pshat in this pasuk. Hai tigra demaya, a tigra demaya. Excuse me. See how you could read wrong without nekudas. Hai tigra, fighting. Damya is similar litzinura debitka demaya, is similar to a flow of water that comes out from a hole in a dam. Kavan de ravach. As the hole widens, so does the water rush out more. Right? If it's a pinhole in the dam, it's not such a big problem. But if you leave it, it's going to widen and widen until it becomes an explosion. That's the way it is. That's the way it is by a fight. Poiter mayim, it's like the release of water, reishis medain, the beginning of a fight. And therefore take care of it and don't let it stew, because it becomes more and more. Abaya Kashisha Amar, Abaya the elder, this is a different Abaya, it's Abaya Kashisha. Abaya the elder says, Domi Laguda de Gamla. It's like a plank on a bridge. If you have a bridge made out of planks, initially it's loose, but kavan to come, as more people walk on it, it gets pushed together and it gets permanent. So also, if you don't take care of a fight right away, it settles in and it becomes like a permanent thing. People now are not ready to forgive. Now the next Gemara is a very famous saying. The mashkichim in yeshivas quote this Gemara very, very often. There was a person that had a mantra, something that he always said. Tove deshama v'odish. It's good, a person who listens and lets it go. He's used to it. As the saying goes, kaven the dash. Once he's used to it, it's used to it. Others learn v'odish means that's the way Rashi learns. He's margo b'kach. He's used to it. He lets it slide. Others learn that odish means it's good someone who hears and shuts his mouth closed. Right? Like matzasi leguf toiv mishtika. Chofua bishtameya. 100 bad things pass him by. If a person, silence is golden. This, by the way, is a yesod throughout Shas. The Gemara says in Masechtas Chulin, Ma'um nosai shel adam ba'olam hazeh. What is a person's profession in this world? Yasa atzmai ke'ilim. He should make himself like a mute. That's a profession? First of all, the fact that the Gemara says it's a profession, it means you have to study. You really have to train yourself. You know what the difference is between a really good pickleball player and a professional? The professional trains 8 hours a day. That's the difference. Trains 8 hours a day. You train 8 hours a day, you become a pro. You know, there are a lot of good singers. But my new daughter, Devora, she trains. And she practices. And she goes to teachers. That's why tomorrow night she's singing in Binyanei Uma in Eretz Yisrael. Right? Because she's a professional. That's the difference. That's a profession. So the Gemara says we all should be a professional at keeping our mouths shut. So the Gemara says even more than that. There's even a more remarkable. Wow, Philippe is coming in from Eretz Yisrael. Great to see you, Philippe. Wonderful to have you. And following on the heels of Philippe is Shelley Zeitlin. Better late than never, Shelley. Just don't make it a habit. You know what I mean? It is, your Nefesh conference excuse has ran its course already. Anyway, you should know that Philippe arrived from Eretz Yisrael before you. So that's anyway.
Foyer's daughter got engaged tonight.
Who?
Rabbi Foyer's daughter.
Oh, Mazel Tov, his Rab's daughter. Mazel Tov, very nice. Should only be for Simchas.
Amen.
I want to say, once we interrupted already, I want to say that it's a test of everybody's dedication to Torah on how they try to not miss on Hanukkah. I always tell my children, try to make the parties around your Kvias Itim L'Torah. Because what saved us on Hanukkah was Torah. It's Zaydim biyad oiskei Sarasecha, the willful ones in the hands of those that are Isaac and Torah. And the menorah represents the Or of Torah. And therefore, Chanukah should be a time where we're mosif learning and not detracting from our learning. Of course, it's a family time, it's very important, but people should try to work around their Kviyas Itim L'Torah. That's why I want to try not to be Mavatal our minyan. We have a Kviyas Dika minyan. I believe that we did it last year, Gdal, We did not? I think we did, because I remember lighting the menorah twice. I remember lighting the menorah twice. By the way, I had asked somebody by Mincha to bring down the menorah from the garage, so maybe somebody after the shir will have the schus to bring it from on top of the refrigerator to downstairs over here, so it'll be ready for tomorrow night.
Do we have to buy supplies for it?
No, I have the supplies. Now, it's good one who listens and lets it slide. That means you hear your wife say something, which really gets, a wife knows how to get under your skin right away. But you hear it, and you let it slide. Chofur bishtamei. 100 bad things pass a person by. It's forgotten. Now, that doesn't mean that a person should disregard something that is of a lasting problem. Then you just bottle it up until you explode. But like we said last night, if it's not going to bother you in 3 hours, just let it slide. Amalei Shmuel Rab Yehuda Kraksiv, Paiter Mayim. Now, Paiter Mayim, if you remember, we said the the word mayim also represents discord, because water is all over the place. It's not contained. It moves all over the place. So paiter mayim, you should get rid of the discord. Why? Because reishis midain, and reishis midain stands for reish meya dine. When there's discord, it is the beginning of 100 bad things. You know, there's a famous statement that machloikis achas doicha meir parnassus. One machloikis ruins 100 parnassus. But paiter mayim reish me'adine. Some say that this is just the similarity of medain is me'adine, 100 bad things. Others say that medain is bigamatria 100. Hauda Avikam of Azel, it was someone who said, Atarte tlas gan v'loy miktel. 2 or 3 times that a thief steals, he doesn't get killed. But eventually it's going to catch up to him. The same way, the Rabbeinu Shalom looks away from sins in the beginning. Ma'av but if a person does it more than 3 times, he develops a chazaka. Amalei Shmuel Reb Yehuda Kruksiv. This is a scriptural basis for this. Kayama Hashem al shloisha pishay Yisrael. I'll look away from 3 sins of Yisrael, but v'arba lo yashivenu. But I'm not going to turn away from the 4th. That's already developing a chazaka, a presumptive status. How would the come of Azul? A person would have a mantra. Shev birei l'shalmana. You could dig 7 pits to ambush a person that pursues peace, and he gets out of trouble. A person that pursues peace, a peace-loving person, has a lot of mazel with Hashem. But the chadal avid bish, but a person that does evil, he gets caught even in 1 pit. And that's what the Gemara says, Amalei Shmuel Reb Yehuda Kruksiv, Ki sheva yipol tzadik v'kam, 7 times does a tzaddik fall and he yet rises, but v'rasha yipol ba'akas, the wicked will fall in the first time. We have to know that the Rabbeinu Shalom wants us to pursue the path of peace. Right? Bakei shalom v'ratfeyu. That's the way of Torah. Dracheh darchei noyam v'chol nesivoseh shalom. Ha'udah v'kam avazul. A person had a mantra. The azul b'dei dina shakal glima. If you leave court and they took your cloak away, I mean they ruled against you. Lizmer zemer, you should sing a song. V'leizel borcha, you should skip and sing while you're going on the way, because this way they saved you from having stolen merchandise and getting much more punishment later. Amalei Shmuel Reb Yehuda Kruksiv, v'gam kol ha'amazal mekayma yava b'shalom. Everybody will go home in peace. Now, why everybody? What about the litigant that was ruled against? How could he be happy? He's happy that he's not going to be punished for having ill-gotten gains. Ha'uda avikahamar va'azal. This person had the following mantra. He naima, if the woman of the house is dozing, vidikula shafel, her basket is sinking. In other words, the domestic, if she's lazy, then the domestic responsibilities around her suffer. Amalei Shmuel Reb Yehuda Kruksiv, ba'atzaltayim, because of laziness, yimach hamakara, the roof sags. If you don't fix the shingles, if you don't repair the holes, eventually the roof will sag. The person who I trusted, he lifted his fist at me, against me. I trusted him, and he's stabbing me in the back. Amalei Shmuel Reb Yehuda Kruksiv. Gami Ishleimi, David HaMelech said also, Ishleimi, my man of peace, Asher Batachti Bai. that I put my trust in, Higdal alai akev, he raised his heel against me. Hodav kam of Ozel. This is a famous saying. Ki rechimten. This is talking about a husband and wife. When our love was solid, ki rechimten avi aziza. When our love was solid, apusya de safsira shchivan. We were able to sleep even on the blade of a knife. We didn't need much. Hashta de lo yaziza rechimten. Now that our love is not strong, purya barshitin garmide lo isagilan. A bed 60 amas wide is not good enough for us. When there is love between husband and wife, that's enough to sustain them. When there's not enough love, then they could have a lot of gashmias, and it's not enough. That's what it says. Im ein shalom ein klum. If there's no peace, there's nothing. That's why he says, Yotzer ara very choshech, oiseh shalom u'veri esakal. If there's peace, you have everything. That's why it's worth almost to sacrifice almost everything to have peace. Amar Avuna Kruksive. It's a pasuk. Mei karaksiv v'na'adati l'chasham. Hashem says, I will meet you there. V'debarti itcha, and I was it itcha or itach? Itcha. V'debarti itcha, and I will speak to you there. Mei ala kaparis, from the ark cover. Now, how high was the ark cover? The Tanya Aron Tisha, the Aron was 9 tvachim, the kapar stefa. So Hashem spoke from 10 tvachim. Harikan asara, v'ksiv, but later it says v'abayis hashabana shloima l'Hashem, the temple that Shlomo built for Hashem, shishim ama arkei, 60 amas wide, esrim rachbai, 20 amas wide, u'shloisha ama kamasai. It was 30 amas tall. Ula b'sayf ksiv. Afterwards, Hashem said, "Ka'ama Hashem Hashemayim kisi, the heaven is my throne, va'aretz hadoim raglai, and the earth is my footstool. Eiza bayis asher timnuli. What kind of a house could you build to me that will be able to contain me?" When Hashem was good with us, He could appear even on 10 tvachim. But now that there's Klal Yisrael is not deserving, there's no place that could withhold Hashem. Now we said that if a Talmud is sitting before the judges and he knows an argument against a wealthy person, lo yisaguru mipnei, she shouldn't withhold it. Shouldn't hold it in. So mashma d'hai lo yisaguru lisay the knushehu. Where do we know that this means to hold it in? Amar Rav Nachman Amar Kravel Yayin lo yisishta. Wine you should not drink, v'lo yisega, nor should you gather it in. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar Me'acha Tochin b'kayetz lachma. Prepare in the summer your bread. Ogra b'kotzir machala, and gather in for the harvest at the time of the harvest your food. Rav Acha bar Rav Ika Amar Me'acha Oger b'kayetz ben maskil. You gather it in the summer if you're an intelligent person. Any judge who renders a decision of truth truthfully. So of course that sounds like a very rhetorical statement. What does it mean, a decision of truth truthfully? And the answer is, a decision of truth is doing due process. That's a decision of truth. He does due process. But if in his heart he feels that something is wrong, then he can't say, look, who cares? I'm off the hook. I'm doing due process. That's a din emes. But it's not a din emes la'amitai. So if he feels in his heart that something is wrong, he feels in his gut, then he has to go it over again. So kol dayan shedon din emes la'amitai mashra shchina b'Yisrael. He brings the shchina in Yisrael. Shenemer Elokim nitzav b'das el. God is there in the assemblage of the mighty. Bekerev Elohim yishpait. And in the midst of God is judgment. The kol dayan shein don din emisamitai. But any judge that doesn't have this penchant for the truth, goyim l'shchina shetistalak mi Yisrael. He caused the shchina to depart from Klal Yisrael. Shenema mishoyd aniyim, from spoiling the poor. Me'enkas ev yainim, from the groans of the needy. Ata okum yomer Hashem. Now I will rise and leave. V'amrav Shmuel ben Achmeini amrav Yonasan. Kol dayan shenoitel mizeh v'noisen lezeh shloi kedin. Any judge that takes it away from one litigant and awards it to another litigant improperly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu noitel mimenu nafshe, it'll cost him his life. Whoa. Don't mess around with corrupt justice. Shenema al tigzel dol kidolhu. Don't rob a poor because he's poor and defenseless. Val tidake oni bishar. Don't crush the poor at the gate. Ki Hashem yorav rivan. Hashem will fight on their behalf. V'kove es kaveyem nefesh. And he will rob those that rob from them and take away their life. Lo Rav Shmuel ben Achmeini Rav Yonasan. Lo olam yira dayan atzmai. A judge should view himself ki'ilu cherev menuachas like bein yarchosav, as if he has, well, ouch, as if he has a sword between his thighs, ready to impale him. The Gehenim psucholai mitachtav, and Gehenim open from underneath him. Now, those that were hoping for a big Amid Beis are getting their wish.
We're talking about a dayan that's doing it purposely, right?
Correct.
Before, if he doesn't.
Correct. Correct. Shenemar. Shenemar. Hinei mitosai shel shloimei. And now here we're referring that shloimei means Hashem. Hamelach shalom shalai. Hinei mitosai shel shloimei. Shishim gibayrim savivla. Now the mitosai of Hashem is the Beis Hamikdash. Rashi says Shishim here is Lav Dafka. It really refers to the Sanhedrin that is positioned around the Beis Hamikdash in the Lishkas HaGazas. Migibori Yisrael, they're made of the mighty ones of Klal Yisrael. Kulam achuzei cherev, they're holding a sword, meaning we'll see that a sword is posed between their thighs. Melumdei milchama, they are trained for battle, the battle of justice. Ish charba yal yerecha, each one has a sword poised by his thighs. Mipachad baleilas, and he has a fear of Gehenim, which is not like night. Mipachad shel Gehenim shedaim lalaylas. This is the way Hashem wants that our judges should have a great fear, not to veer from the correct judgment. Dorish Rav Yoshev, Yisrael, Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Rav Yoshia, and others say Rav Nachman Yitzchak expounded. Ma'idich Siv, Beis David, house of David. Koyama Hashem, so said Hashem. Dinu leboiker mishpat, judge in the morning justice. V'hitzilu gozel miyad oishik, and save the one who was victimized from the oppressor. So the Gemara says, what do you mean, dinu laboiker mishpat? You only make judgment in the morning? V'chi b'boiker danim v'kol hayom ein danim? You judge only in the morning and not the rest of the day? Elim bar l'chadav k'boiker, if you're sure, like the morning light, amreyu, issue the verdict. V'im lav, if not, al tamreyu. B'chi b'abba am Rabbi Yoina Semeacha. Ema l'chachma achaysi, say to chachma, you are my sister. What does that mean, that wisdom is your sister? If you're confident in the verdict, as confident as your sister is forbidden to you, amreyu. V'imlav, if not, al tamreyu. Rabbi Shimon Levi. 10 people that sit in judgment. Kailer toli b'tzaver kulan. There's an iron collar around their necks. In other words, they're they're like one who is prepared for the gallows. And they're sitting, if they make the wrong decision, they're in mortal danger. So the Gemara says, Pshita, just because they're 10, what's the Chiddush? Says the Gemara, if there's a disciple viewing the proceedings, and he knows an argument and he withholds it, he also has the collar around his neck. Rav Huna, Rav Huna, when a judgment came before him, with great humility, he gathered 10 Rabbanim. In other words, he wanted to share the responsibility. If he did it himself, he would take the full responsibility. Amar kiyechi delimte shiva mikshura. Each one will take a splinter from the beam. The responsibility will be shared. Ravashi, similarly, Ravashi kava'asa treif de lekameh. When there was a shaila, if an animal was a treif, it had a fatal flaw, that even if it had a kosher shchita, it's disqualified. You have to know if it was a perforated membrane of the brain. He would gather all the experts of Masa Mechasya. Everybody will take a little bit of the responsibility. When Rav Dimi arrived, he said, Dorish Rav Nachman bar Kohen. Rav Nachman bar Kohen expounded, the king in justice upholds the world. The ish trumais, and the man who takes presents, Yersena tears it down. This refers not to a bribe. That's not what some learn this pasuk referring to a bribe. But Rav Nachman bar Kohen has a different explanation of the pasuk. He says there's a person who really is not capable to be a judge. And when he's asked a question, he turns to other people for presents, for assistance. So if he's always asking for help, then such a person is not capable to be a judge, and he brings the world down. As the Gemara says, let's see it inside. Im dayin doimel melech. If he's melech b'mishpat, if he's like a king, shein tzarich l'klum, he has everything. King has everything. So then Yamed Eretz, if he knows the knowledge, the correct judicial knowledge, then he upholds the land. But if he's like a kohen who's always going around to the threshing floor to get the gifts of the truma, right, and the trumas meiser, so then if he's always asking for help, Yersena, he's not capable to judge, and he causes the people to be torn down. Rav David Cohen says an interesting thing. Rav David Cohen, Shlita, says that there's only one place in Shemona Esrei where it says Yogaina and Anocha, grief and groaning. And that's in the bracha of Yeshiva Sheftenu Kevarishayna. Corrupt judges bring tremendous grief to the world. I have a nephew. They just released his name now. It's my wife's sister's son, Ari Rosenfeld. He's sitting in jail. 3 courts said he could be home with his wife and daughter, but the Supreme Court said because he's so high in military intelligence and he has so much knowledge of classified information, this is a 30-year-old boy, he has to remain in jail. This is somebody who passed documents to the Prime Minister. That was his guilt. Passed documents to the Prime Minister. B'nagei, the hostages, and the Gaza. And he's sitting in jail. Many members of the Knesset and the 2 chief rabbis asked President Herzog to pardon him, but we're still waiting for a Hanukkah miracle. In the meantime, my nephew Ari Rosenfeld is sitting. Corrupt justice. Yeah. It's very complicated. There was a gag order until until yesterday, nobody even knew his name. He was just called a reservist. He's not a reservist. He works very high up in military intelligence, but his job is so top secret they couldn't even say what he was. He's 30 years. He's younger than my baby Yocheved. It's amazing. It's my sister.
I'm also in intelligence.
Yeah, I know.
Also high up.
I know. Very.
You're in the lack of, Barry, don't worry.
No,
Yeah,
no.
okay.
No.
Barry's looking for intelligence.
Shh.
I'm just talking common sense here, okay?
Okay. So says the Gemara. The Bein Nasiya, the house of the Nasi, Ukmedaina Dolei Avigamer. The house of the Nasi appointed a judge that wasn't learned. Amalei Yehuda bar Nachmani Meturgum and Reish Lakish. The Nasi told Yehuda bar Nachmani, who was the interpreter, the broadcaster for the Reish Lakish, Kumalei Ba'Moira. Be this judge's broadcaster. In other words, he had a strong voice. He said, you project what the judge says. So come Gochin Alei. So Yehuda bar Nachmani bent down to him to hear what he had to say. He had nothing to say. He had nothing to say. Pasach v'amar. So Yehuda bar Nachmani said in a lament, Hi, woe, Aimer le'etz hakitza. You tell the block of wood, awaken. Uri le'even dumem. You say, awake, O silent stone. Le'even dumem, hu yaira. To a silent stone. Uri le'even dumam, awake to a silent stone. Hu yaira, can he teach? Hinehu tafas zov v'chesef. It's like he's covered with gold and silver. V'kol ruach ein b'kirbai, and there's no spirit within him. Hashem is going to punish those that appoint these imposters. This causes, like we said, to Hashem to recede from the world and go up to his holy abode. Hasmi panav kalaretz. The whole world will be silent in desolation because of such corrupt judges. Whoever appoints a judge that's not worthy, it's like planting an idolatrous tree in Klal Yisrael. That's what's the juxtaposition. That's the smichas shayftim shaytrim titein lecha. You appoint judges and enforcers. Don't make an idolatrous tree. Don't make one that's not worthy. And if you appoint unworthy people when there are Talmidei Chacham, then that's like planting the Asherah next to the Mizbeach. Even worse. That's why it says right next to the pasuk, Asherah kol eitz, Eitzel Mizbach Hashem Alikecha, near the altar of Hashem. To appoint it when there are Talmidei Chacham, it's like making an Asherah near the Mizbeach. Ksiv, Loisason iti, do not make with me Elohei Chesef, Elohei Zav, gods of silver and gods of gold. Now, the literal meaning of this pasuk is, don't make idols of silver and gold. Today we also say a famous homiletic explanation of this pasuk, and that is, don't worship money. There are people that worship money. What does that mean? Why aren't they by the share? Because they're at work. Why aren't they spending time with their family? They're at work. Why aren't they davening mincha b'minyan? They're at work. Don't make Elihei Chesef Elihei's up. Why don't they have Shalom Bayis? They're at work. But the Gemara now says something else over here. You're only not allowed to make gods of silver and gold. You are allowed to make gods of wood. Elihei Chesef Elihei Zavu D'Loi Avdei Hada Eit Shari. Out of wood you could make it. Amar Rav Ashi Eloha haba b'shvil kesef, Eloha haba b'shvil zav. Don't, Eloah, we know, refers also to judges. Judges who purchase their way in. Right? Judges that you appoint because of silver, and judges who you appoint because of gold, don't do that. Don't make judges who bought their positions. Now, Rav, we know that a judge is not allowed to be paid a salary. The only thing he could get is schar bittul. You could compensate him for what he could have done with his time otherwise. So Rav, ki hava asel beit dinei, Rav, when he went to the court, Amar Hachi, b'ru'us nafshe, willingly, l'ketola nafik, I'm exposing myself to death, because we said that a judge should feel as if he has a sword between his thighs. Utzvi beisei lesu oven, and I'm not doing the needs of my house. V'reikin lebeisei ayil, and when I come home, I come back empty-handed. I'm not bringing a salary. And he says, ulavai shetei bia ki yitzia. Halavai, I should come home free of sin, like when I left to the court. Halavai, I shouldn't make a mistake. Now, we all heard of examples of how great people like the Chofetz Chaim would say psukim of humility before they were honored by huge crowds. Like there were great rebbes who thousands of people would come out for them, and you would hear them muttering, Toyavas Hashem kol gvalev. It's an abomination of the Lord, a person who has a haughty heart. So the Gemara tells us, Ki avichozi ambua abasrei, when he would see a large crowd following, Amar im yala l'shamayim siu, even if my fame reaches the heaven, ki gelaloi, like my dung, l'netzach yoived, my body will perish forever. Where am I going to? I'm going to rot like dung in the grave. Ma'azurta chazida ki have a mechas v'lei b'shapsa de rigla. There was a great, huge drasha before the regel, or on the Shabbos of the Yom Tov, where thousands of people would come and they would carry him upon their shoulders and give him great honor. Amahachi, kiloila olam chaysin. Strength doesn't last forever. V'im neizil adar v'dar, and does the crown go from generation to generation? Darish bar kapara. You know, Irving would say over for me many times that we know that we get a separate mitzvah saseh for every word of learning. So imagine how many mitzvahs we're getting here tonight. It's an amazing thing. Absolutely amazing. We will not live to eat thousands of afikoimens. We won't hear thousands of shofar on Rosh Hashanah. But tonight we're doing, there's over 2,000 words here. We're doing over 2,000 mitzvahs. I mean, that's something to really be excited about. Darish bar kapara. Mina milsa da amr rabbanon. How do we know that which the rabbi said? Every misunim bedin. Be deliberate in judgment. Dechsiv lo yisale b'malois. It says you shouldn't take wide strides on the Mizbeach. That's why there's no steps on the Mizbeach. V'samachle, and right afterwards it says ve'ela mishpatim. So everything should be done very deliberately. Amar Rabbi Elazar minayin l'dayin shelo yifsal Rashi Am Kodesh is another drasha. How do we know that the judge, when he gets to his seat, shouldn't step over people that are sitting on the floor? Shenem lo yisale b'malois. You shouldn't take wide strides and step over people. V'samachle ve'ela mishpatim. Now it says ve'ela mishpatim asher tosim lifneim. What do you mean tosim? It should say these are the laws asher talamdeim. Asher talamdeim miboyle. You should teach them. These are the tools of the dayanim. Rav Huna having nafik for dinner. Rav Huna, when he would go to the courtroom, Amar Hachi. Take out for me the tools of my trade. What are the tools of his trade? Makil, the staff, the stick, the rod to do makas mardis, rabbinical malchus, ritzula, the whip to do malchus daraisa, the shayfa to do excommunication, the sandala to do chalitza. The Bezdin had a chalitza shul. There was a famous chalitza shul in MTJ. I want to give a shout out. We're missing Mark Frankel again tonight, but I want to give a shout out to one of our regulars who is really missed, Aaron Swade. He's in Panama. And does Panama have a time difference? But I guess he might be having internet problems. If he wouldn't have internet problems, I'm sure he would be here. He never misses. But
1 hour difference.
1 hour difference. Anyway, a shout out to him. I'm sure he's listening to this year. And I will instruct your judges at this time. This is about the rod and the whip. Be energetic. Use it as you're supposed to, but make sure not to abuse it. Hear between brothers and judge them. This means you got to be very exacting in din. Rab Chanina. First Gemara tells us something else. That you have to hear acheichem. You have to hear both litigants at the same time. You know, if you get your argument in first, it leaves a very big impression. Also, a person is more hesitant to say a lie when he's facing the other litigant than if he's saying it alone. So, Amar Rab Chanina, Ashar lebezdin, this is a warning to the court, Shelo yishma divrei baldin, he shouldn't listen to one argument, Kaidim shi'avoy baldin chaverei, until the other litigant comes. And that's what it means, Shamoya bein acheichem. You have to hear amongst the brothers. They both have to be there. Not only is this a command to the judge, but also v'ashar lebaldin. This is a warning to the litigant. Shalayatin dvar l'dayin. He shouldn't make tasty his words to the judge. Kaidim shiyava baldin chavera, until the other litigant comes. Kari beinami, because we read it also not just Shemaya going on the judge, but shameya bein acheichem. Make it heard amongst the brothers. You could only say it when the other litigant is there. Rav Kan Amar mehacha loisisa shem hashav. You shouldn't bear a false report. That's on the judge. And loisasi. You shouldn't give over a false report. Ushvatetem tzedek. And you should judge righteously. Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says this is a warning. Tzadek es adin. Make sure you have the clear righteous verdict, and only then and only then convict. Bein ishu bein achiv. So here the Gemara tells us that the decision has to be exacting. Amar Rav Yehuda hafilu bein bayis laliyah. Even if a judge is dividing the estate between two brothers, and there's a first floor and a second floor with the exact same dimensions. Don't just say one takes one and one takes the other. The attic is worth less because you have to climb up to it. And therefore, since you have to climb up to it, the one that gets the bottom floor has to give half of its extra value to the brother that gets the one on top. Ubein geiroi, between a stranger. Now we're going to take this geiroi to mean maguroi, between the domestic stuff. Amar Rav Yehuda afilu bein tana l'kiraim, even between an oven and a double stove. Now, an oven double stove, you may think, an oven is bigger, but a double stove is 2 fires. No, you have to assess which one is more and make a fair division. Lo yisakiru ponim b'mishpat. You shouldn't recognize someone in judgment. Rabbi Yehuda lo yisakireyu. You shouldn't show favor to a litigant that you like. Don't act like one as a stranger. Don't treat one poorly because you don't like him. There can't be any favoritism, and if the judge can't help it, then he has to recuse himself from the case. Okay, wow, isn't that interesting? We just hit an hour. So we did the shir in an hour, which is very good.